something feels different lately. Not in one moment, not from one event, but in the way life moves. People are working harder, thinking faster, and resting less, yet progress feels slower. It's not loud, it's not sudden, but if you pay attention, you can feel it. And once you see what changed, you can't unsee it.
There's something strange happening in modern life, and most of us feel it even if we struggle to explain it clearly. On paper, everything looks better than it ever has before. We have more technology, more convenience, more information, more comfort. Tasks that once took hours now take minutes. Messages travel instantly. Food arrives at our doors. Entertainment is endless. In many ways, life should feel lighter, easier, more manageable. But for some reason, it doesn't. Instead, many people feel tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix, overwhelmed in a way that weekends don't solve, busy even when they haven't done anything physically exhausting. There's a quiet pressure that seems to sit in the background of everyday life, following people from morning to night without ever fully announcing itself. And what makes this feeling so confusing is that it doesn't come from one obvious problem. There's no single crisis, no clear enemy, no dramatic moment where things suddenly went wrong. Life still works, jobs exist, systems function. People smile, scroll, joke, and plan. From the outside, everything looks normal. But internally, something feels heavier than it used to. Many people blame themselves for this feeling. They assume they're just not disciplined enough, not organized enough, not grateful enough. They tell themselves that others are handling life just fine, so the problem must be personal. But what if it isn't? What if this sense of heaviness isn't a failure of motivation or mindset or effort, but a response to something subtle that has changed around us? Because when a large number of people across different ages and lifestyles all describe the same quiet exhaustion, it usually means something bigger is happening beneath the surface, something structural, something environmental, something that doesn't show up on productivity charts or technology headlines. This isn't a story about weakness, it's a story about conditions. And to understand why life feels harder, even when everything looks better, we first have to stop asking what's wrong with people and start asking what quietly changed in the world they're living in.
Technology was supposed to give us time back. That was the promise. Machines would do the hard work, systems would become efficient, and life would slow down just enough for people to breathe. In some ways, that promise was kept. Tasks became easier, processes became faster, communication became instant. But speed has a side effect that rarely gets discussed. When something becomes faster, it doesn't usually disappear, it expands. What once took effort becomes expectation. Emails didn't replace letters, they multiplied communication. Smartphones didn't free us from work, they followed us everywhere. Tools designed to save time quietly raised the standard of how much we're supposed to handle in a single day. And because this change happened gradually, it felt natural. There was no announcement that life was about to speed up, no meeting where everyone agreed to be more available, more responsive, more productive. The environment simply shifted, and people adjusted without realizing what they were giving up in the process. The result is a strange kind of pressure, not the loud, obvious kind, the quiet kind. The pressure to reply quickly, to stay updated, to keep up, to optimize, to respond even when nothing is technically urgent. Even rest now comes with options, notifications, and choices that demand attention. What used to be free time is now filled time. And the mind doesn't experience this as convenience, it experiences it as load, a constant stream of small decisions, messages, updates, and comparisons that never fully stop. Individually, none of them feel overwhelming. Together, they create a background noise that makes it difficult to ever feel finished. This is why many people feel mentally tired even on days when they haven't done much physically. The body rests, the mind doesn't. It's always partially engaged, partially alert, partially preparing for the next input. Technology didn't make life harder by itself. It changed the rhythm of life. And once the rhythm changed, everything else had to follow, including how people think, rest, and measure their own worth.
There's another reason life feels heavier now, and it's harder to name because it doesn't come from effort. It comes from comparison. Not the obvious kind, where someone clearly has more than you. The subtle kind, where everyone seems to be doing slightly better, slightly faster, slightly more confidently than you are. This didn't used to be constant. In the past, comparison was limited by proximity. You compared yourself to coworkers, neighbors, maybe people you admired from a distance. Now, comparison is ambient. It exists in the background of everyday life. Curated success, edited happiness, carefully framed progress, all flowing past your eyes without asking permission. And the mind doesn't treat this as entertainment. It treats it as information. Even when you know it's incomplete, even when you know it's selective, part of your brain still records it as evidence. Evidence that you might be behind. Evidence that others are moving forward while you're standing still. Evidence that whatever you're doing could probably be done better. This creates a quiet urgency that never fully shuts off. You don't feel like you're failing, you feel like you're almost failing. Like you should be doing more. Like rest needs to be earned. Like slowing down is risky. Like if you pause too long, something important will pass you by. And because this pressure doesn't come from a single source, it's hard to push back against. There's no one to argue with, no rule to break, no clear moment where you can say, this is enough. So people internalize it. They blame themselves for feeling tired. They assume they're unmotivated, disingenuous, or lacking ambition. They don't realize that the environment itself is applying pressure, constantly, quietly, and without mercy. This is how exhaustion becomes normalized, not through collapse, but through adaptation. People don't stop functioning. They just function at a higher cost.
For a long time, stability meant predictability. You could plan. You could assume that effort would roughly match outcome, that if you followed a certain path, the ground beneath you would stay firm. That assumption is weaker now. Not because everything is collapsing, but because fewer things feel guaranteed. Jobs exist, but feel conditional. Systems function, but feel fragile. Plans can still be made, but they come with an unspoken asterisk, unless something changes. And something always seems close to changing. This creates a new kind of stress, not fear of disaster, but awareness of volatility. You don't wake up expecting things to fall apart. You wake up knowing they could, and that knowledge subtly alters behavior. People become more cautious with decisions that used to feel obvious. They delay commitments. They hesitate before investing time, money, or identity into long-term plans, not because they're indecisive, but because the environment no longer rewards certainty. This is why even positive progress can feel thin. You might be doing better than before, earning more, learning more, achieving more, yet still feel less secure. Because security isn't just about position, it's about confidence in continuity. And continuity is what feels uncertain now. The mind responds by staying alert. It scans for risk. It prepares for interruption. It keeps options open, even at the cost of depth. And while this seems rational, it has a side effect. Nothing ever fully settles. Moments of calm feel temporary. Success feels provisional. Stability feels like something you have to constantly defend instead of something you can stand on. So people stay busy, not always productive, busy, as if movement itself might prevent loss, as if staying active could substitute for control. This is why rest can feel uncomfortable, silence feels exposed, pauses feel dangerous, because when the system around you feels unstable, stillness feels like vulnerability. And over time, this changes how people relate to their own lives. They don't ask, "Is this meaningful?" They ask, "Is this safe?" They don't think in decades, they think in short windows. The future shrinks, not because imagination is gone, but because uncertainty crowds it out. Here's what makes this moment difficult to recognize. When life feels harder, it feels personal. It feels like something you failed to manage, a wrong decision, a missed opportunity, not enough discipline, not enough effort. But the pressure you feel isn't isolated, it's structural. Across different countries, cultures, and income levels, people report the same sensation, working harder while feeling less ahead, doing everything right, yet struggling to gain traction. Progress exists, but it feels slower, thinner, more expensive than it used to. This isn't because everyone suddenly became less capable, it's because the systems around them changed. Costs rose faster than stability, expectations increased while margins shrank, risk shifted downward, away from institutions and toward individuals. What used to be absorbed by systems is now carried by people. And most people never agreed to that shift, they just adapted. This is why comparison has become exhausting. You look around and see others moving forward, but you can't tell how fragile their position is. Everyone is optimizing, everyone is presenting momentum, everyone is quietly managing uncertainty. So even success feels tense. You don't enjoy it fully because you're already thinking about maintaining it. You don't celebrate progress because you're calculating how easily it could reverse. The mind stops resting in achievement and starts guarding it. This creates a strange contradiction. People are more informed than ever, yet less confident, more connected, yet more isolated, surrounded by opportunity, yet cautious about choosing any single path. And when the strain becomes constant, people internalize it. They assume the exhaustion is personal, that resilience means pushing harder, that struggling quietly is a sign of maturity. But resilience without relief becomes erosion, not dramatic burnout, just slow depletion. Motivation thins, curiosity narrows, life becomes a sequence of tasks instead of a sense of direction. This is how pressure becomes invisible, because it doesn't arrive as crisis, it arrives as normal. And when something feels normal, people stop questioning it, even when it's costing them more than they realize.
There's a moment that comes after pressure, after confusion, after long periods of adjustment. It's the moment when people stop asking what's wrong with me and start asking what changed around me. That shift matters, because once you see the environment clearly, you stop blaming yourself for conditions you didn't create. You begin separating effort from outcome, discipline from reward, movement from progress. And that clarity is rare. Most systems benefit when people stay confused, when they believe struggle is individual, not structural, when they interpret exhaustion as weakness instead of feedback. Because confused people keep pushing in the same direction, even when the ground beneath them has shifted. But awareness changes behavior. Not overnight, not dramatically, quietly. People become more selective, more deliberate, less reactive. They stop chasing every signal of success and start paying attention to sustainability. They value stability over speed, direction over noise.
This doesn't mean giving up. It means choosing differently. It means understanding that not every hard season requires more force. Some require better alignment, better timing, better boundaries. And this is where things become uncomfortable, because once you see the system, you can't unsee it. You notice how incentives shape behavior, how urgency replaces purpose, how constant optimization leaves little room for meaning. So the question stops being, why does life feel harder? The real question becomes, what kind of life is this system rewarding? And then an even harder one follows. Is that the life you actually want to build? Because pressure will always exist. Complexity isn't going away. Uncertainty will remain part of the landscape. But how you relate to it, that's not fixed. Some people spend their energy trying to keep up. Others step back long enough to decide where they're going. That pause is powerful. Not because it solves everything, but because it restores agency. It reminds you that clarity is a form of strength, that choosing fewer things can sometimes move you further, that not every signal deserves your response. And maybe that's the quiet truth beneath all of this. Life doesn't feel harder because people became weaker. It feels harder because the rules changed and no one announced it. Once you understand that, you stop fighting yourself, and that's usually where real progress begins.
This isn't about fear, and it isn't about blame. It's about understanding the environment you're moving in before you exhaust yourself fighting it. If this made you pause, even for a moment, then the message reached you. If you want more conversations like this, more clarity without noise, and more meaning without hype, you know what to do. Take care of your attention. It's more valuable than you think.